Welcome to the Witcher Lorecast, the show that explores the vast lore behind the Witcher games, show, and books. Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with my good buddy Toasty to talk about our most favorite to make fun of wizard today. Mm-hmm. He's our favorite to make fun of because he's our least favorite. I think that's how that works. What do you think? Yeah? Yeah, Toasty's just like, yes. You know, words help on podcasts. Oh,
he's
there
horrible.
We go. He's got more words. Okay, cool. Yeah, we hate him. He's horrible. Who are we talking about, Toasty?
Talking about Stregobor.
No, that's Stregobor. He's kind of
he is a bore.
He's kind of a bore.
In multiple meanings of the word.
Yeah. Also, I tried to make the title of this live stream on Twitch, Stregobor the Douchebag Wizard, but it wouldn't let me use the word douchebag in my title. And you would think, with Twitch, everybody drops the F-bomb all the time, but you can't put douchebag in a title. What's with that? I don't know, but it's accurate.
It's true.
Yeah. So you're going to hear a lot of trash talking on this episode. If you have been paying any attention to any of our other episodes where Stregobor comes up, then this is going to be like 10 times more than that because we're going into detail here, huh? Yeah, man.
Yeah. And you know what? You know what's great is that the details start with him being an asshole.
He's like that from the beginning.
Yes,
right.
He is.
Right at the beginning. Okay, so how are we going to kick this off?
Well, we'll start with a quote or passage from The Last Wish as a description. But Stregobor always looked as, according to every rule and notion, a wizard should look. He was tall, thin, and stooping, with enormous bushy gray eyebrows and a long crooked nose. To top it off, he wore a black trailing robe with improbably wide sleeves and wielded a long staff capped with a crystal knob.
Maybe we should just call him Crystal Knob.
Crystal knob.
He's kind of a crystal knob.
He's a total knob. I think that's a British insult. I don't know what it means.
It probably is.
I don't think it means anything nice.
Yeah, knob. Also, wizard sleeves. That's another Borat joke.
I'm not familiar. Well, no, I feel like I've heard you say that.
He talks about lady parts and the fact that they were loose like a wizard's sleeve. A very Borat thing.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. We went explicit within the first 6 seconds.
Yeah. Douchebags, lady parts. I mean, it's not even how lady parts work, by the way, but Borat seems to think so. Anyway, so where are we going with this? And now that this episode is clearly off track, where do we go from here?
Kind of a start with his biography. Stregobor spent the vast majority of his life serving King Edi of Kovir alongside the mage Zavist. At one point, the Witcher Geralt of Rivia completed a contract by killing an Amphisbena for the king.
Amphisbena.
Such a fun word to say.
Amphisbena. That's how you spell it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. But was screwed over when Stregobor and Zavist convinced Edi that Geralt was a charlatan and shouldn't be paid. Look, we're already starting off with Stregobor being a horrible person. Like what? Come on.
Yeah. By the way, did you know that an Amphisbena is a serpent in classical mythology having a head at each end and capable of moving in either direction, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary?
That's incredible. I don't know if I knew exactly what that was. I know it's been I think it was mentioned in the books, but they don't exactly I don't remember them describing it in detail. Sometimes they just mention the names of things and you kind of got to figure it out, like a scolopendromorph. They don't explain it. It's just oh, okay. You look it up, but it's a giant centipede. And you're like, oh dear.
Yeah. And I don't know that these are in any of the games either. But if you look up on the Witcher wiki, it also notes that they're a giant water serpent with a head on each end. So that seems to be we probably can't even do a bestiary episode on these because there's just not that much info. But so if you were wondering what an Amphisbena is, there you go.
serpent thing. And Geralt was barely given enough time to leave the kingdom. So he was not only not paid, he was booted from Kovir, which is like, it's messed up.
Totally.
Being a strong believer in the curse of the Black Sun, he also helped the council's efforts trying to learn more about the afflicted girls, going as far to do autopsies and even a vivisection on one, believing he was acting in the people's defense because the mutant girls would have drowned entire countries in blood.
Now, this is something that we see some of in the Witcher TV show in season 1.
Mm-hmm. And we will be talking about that specifically.
Yeah. So if you were familiar with the show, this is where he comes in in the show. So, yeah.
However, it proved difficult in picking the girls out, so the mages stopped killing the girls and started to lock them up in towers. What a wonderful compromise.
Right. And a wonderful nod to like traditional European like storytelling and mythology, you know, Rapunzel, like the princess in the tower, that kind of thing.
Well, so like there's like a ton of like kind of those like fairy tale like references. There's like a part where we get to Renfrey specifically. Stregobor turned her into a slab of granite, I believe. Very Snow White, I think, kind of
being frozen.
And then, of course, you know, like the story of Nivellen. I mean, that's like Beauty and the Beast, essentially. With the twist. So
yeah, that's one of the cool things about these books, and a lot of the stories that come from them are the twists on traditional folklore and fairy tales and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was prophecy. So just a little bit of an explanation for the curse of the Black Sun and what it means. It was prophesied by the mage Eltibald that an eclipse foretold the end of the human civilization at the hands of 60 girls born during the Black Sun, or an eclipse, which would turn them into cruel creatures who would bring about the return of the goddess Lilith and the end of the world.
Okay, side note here. This is clearly something that doesn't actually come into fruition, right? This is one of those things that like Geralt refers to when he says things like, I've lived through so many tellings of the ends of the world that, you know, like that kind of thing.
I've been through 3 supposed end of days. They're all horse shit.
Yeah. So I would assume that this is one of those that's kind of counted in that. But what's interesting about this is that there is some truth to it in that some of these girls actually do have these extra powers and abilities. They are superhuman or different in ways. So there is some truth to the fact that maybe they could be dangerous, but
it's like some of them are born with extra abilities. Some people in the Witcher universe are born with extra abilities regardless.
Right. And some of them cultivate magic abilities like Stregobor, and yet they're not rounding up the mages and, you know, killing them, putting them in towers.
It's like a huge assumption of like because they were born under the Black Sun, the reason that they're special at all is because they're cursed, when, you know, like you can look at all these other people that are existed that have special abilities who weren't, and therefore they're not like prosecuted for being born at a certain time. Like it's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the point. Of course,
it doesn't help the fact that they're all women. So,
right. Totally. And they're being rounded up by a male wizard and the other people who are in charge, who typically are male. And and so I think that if anything, this is one of those warning stories. And one of the stories that justifies Geralt's belief in like intelligent monsters being given the chance to prove themselves as being evil or not before actually taking care of them. You know, given the chance, a lot of these women, if they weren't persecuted, might have just grown up as regular people or even been beneficial to society. But
I even put in a part about that with this next part, where we're specifically talking about Renfrey.
Yeah, let's talk about Renfrey.
The most prominent, born under the eclipse. So sometime later, the council sent Stregobor to Creighton because of the Queen Iradia's suspicions concerning her stepdaughter Renfrey, who'd been born during an eclipse. Reportedly using Nahalania's mirror, a mirror with oracular capabilities, the queen learned she and many others would die at the hands of her stepdaughter. Insert self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that their actions to stop this isn't the reason that it happens in the first place, right?
Yeah, right.
So Stregobor showed up and spied on the young Renfri, and after conducting some tests, confirmed the child was a mutant, which I thought was interesting because I think he specifically talks about how the only way to know for sure is to cut them open and look at their insides. So how is he able to confirm it? Well, if he didn't do this.
As we know, talking about Stregobor in previous episodes, so much of what he believes to be true, he does so because he wants to believe it's true, not because he has the evidence with which to do so. Like hatred of elves, like a lot of these kinds of personality quirks that he has are very much in line with people who act according to their beliefs without actually having proof.
Yeah. So what, confirmation bias essentially? Or something like that?
And which to go a little bit more real world in this is a reason why people are racist, or people are sexist, or people are ageist, or people are culturist against other cultures, elitist. It's because they want to believe those things are true, not because they have actual evidence or enough evidence to believe so. And he falls right into that.
Oh yeah, he's definitely guilty of many of those ists that you just mentioned. So
and usually that comes from a lack of self worth. I mean, usually it's in putting on others the things that you feel insecure about in yourself, which is a psychological issue. But that's part of what makes these characters so interesting, is that they exhibit these like real world personality quirks and problems.
While he wanted to isolate the girl, which I guess props to not wanting to instantly kill her at least, Aradia wanted to kill her and sent the princess into the woods with a thug hired to kill her. Trigger warning here.
Trigger warning if you don't like bad things that happen to people sometimes when they get assaulted in very dark, terrible ways. Skip ahead.
Say trigger warning. Instead, the thug raped Renfri. She took advantage of him being occupied and stabbed her brooch pin through his ear and into his brain, killing him and running away.
Good for her. He deserved it.
Stregobor soon left, but 4 years later, Aradia sent word that she tracked down Renfri, now known as Shrike, to Mahakam. The queen then summoned him to return to Creighton. But by the time he arrived, Aradia had been poisoned and subsequently died. While the general rumor was that her husband, Fredefalk, did it, Stregobor believed it was the work of Renfri.
Because of course he would. Even if he didn't have enough information, he would just assume it, right?
Yeah, and Renfri tells us that she didn't do it. And like, there's just no reason to really... I mean,
no real motivation there.
Bad. She's a bad person, right? Generally,
but not without
the circumstance led her to be that way. But in the sense of like, she was not ashamed of the stuff she had done, so she really had no reason to lie about it. Like, if she had done it, why would you there's just no reason. And we know this kind of stuff, like, given the time frame how the setting of The Witcher takes place, a lot of kings killed their wives for like a multitude of reasons,
Henry including like style stuff.
Yeah, or not bearing like a male heir or something like that. Like there's so many reasons.
Which is again accurate. Like there's a lot of historical precedent for that.
Yeah, so later on, Stregobor was in Mahakam when Renfri crossed paths with him, and remembering his part back in Creighton, moved to attack the sorcerer, but he uttered a spell at the last minute, turning her into a crystal slab, which he then tossed into a mine and proceeded to cave in, burying her. Despite this, Renfri was later freed by a prince from a distant kingdom and set out to assassinate Stregobor. And this is the part where I was talking about like Snow White vibes. Basically, she was put to sleep and like Prince came and awakened her.
Yeah. You think he would have used a more, at least, I don't know, 100% confirmable way of killing somebody if he was that worried about her?
It was like, yeah, because it's like, you turn her into a crystal slab. Do you not just like break apart the crystal slab?
Yeah.
At that point?
Why not just break it? Like you have the ability, or have done a different spell that just murdered her outright. But stories, I mean, it's a more fun story for it to go this way, right?
Yeah. So now we move on to the events of Blaviken. So I don't necessarily have to like talk about this in too much detail. Probably for most people would probably at least seen the first episode of the show, and most of this is pretty accurate when it comes to the book's version of things. But just for a general summary, Geralt later ran into Renfri and Stregobor in the town of Blaviken. Stregobor was under the guise of the previous town wizard, Master Irian, and was just essentially hiding out under an alias and serving the town. But regardless, Renfri tracked him down, and they each took their turn in trying to convince Geralt to kill the other person, claiming that it was the lesser evil. And, well, we all know what Geralt thinks about lesser evils. So neither one of them convinced him. He kind of grew a little close to Renfri, but she got a
little touchy-feely.
Yeah, which she took advantage of and went into the town the next day and was planning on killing every citizen in the town until Stregobor came out of the tower.
Which gives us insight into her personality and how desperate she was, and how angry for vengeance she was against him. But the innocent people didn't need to have to be in the middle of that.
Yeah. And so as we know, Geralt intervened, killed her entire gang and her, and then was cast out of Blaviken because he slaughtered a bunch of people in the streets, even though he literally saved everyone. But we know how people treat witchers. Of course, Stregobor, he had no intention of coming out of the tower. He was fine with letting everyone die for him. So, yeah, just a little bit of another insight into,
why he's a douchebag.
As he is. Yeah. So, pretty, typical tragic Witcher story there. So,
that wraps up that story.
That is essentially all that's all we get out of Stregobor in the non-show material. He doesn't really have a big involvement other than just that story. So
interesting. But he does seem to be a much bigger player when it comes to the cinematic Witcher universe, which makes sense. He's a pretty terrible dude who has a lot of power.
Yeah, which I both like and dislike, because obviously it's great to see more of a character that like you may have had interest in, which I did. I was definitely interested in seeing more of this guy and if what the things he got and the show does that for us. And it's great to hate him. Like you just love to hate him because he's terrible. Yeah, you
kind of want there to be a justified ending to his arc, which you don't get in the books, right? So if we get some sort of he gets his just desserts in the show, that'll be really satisfying.
It'll be really satisfying, especially if I feel like the way they pushed it, like Yennefer is able to kill him slowly. I feel like that'd be super satisfying.
Oh no!
Well, just because of how he's
in ways that he has done to others.
He did Geralt dirty, but she's been.
Well, he's been tormenting all these poor girls. Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. Well, it's time for our mid break. We're going to go thank our patrons, but stay tuned because we're going to talk about more about Stregobor in the show's timeline when we get back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. We get to thank our patrons. No new patrons this week, but we do get to call out Ben of Temeria and Bane, the hospital guy, for being our higher vampires. Thank you for supporting the show as tier 5 supporters. Thank you to all 15 of our patrons. If you are one of our patrons, Toasty and I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. And if you aren't already, but you would like to help us out, you've got a few extra bucks, maybe you got your tax return, you're trying to figure out what to do, why not support us? Join us on a future episode of the show, which, by the way, will be on the 30th. And Toasty, as long as you're able to do it, it's kind of a holiday day, but it'll be late enough. You should be able to do it.
I'll be tired, but I'm good.
All right. Yeah. We'll shoot for the 30th because that would be the last Monday of the month where we and our tier 4 and higher patrons get together and talk every month about whatever topic our patrons want to talk about. So if you are one of our patrons, we'd love for you to be posting some details about some ideas. There's all sorts of things that we could be sharing and discussing together. And if you're not, head over to patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast. Check out all the different tiers. Get yourself a t-shirt. Get yourself ad-free episodes. You don't even have to wait till you're all caught up. You can start listening now without ads and all of that stuff for only starting at like $5 a month. Or maybe it's lower than that. I haven't looked in a while. Maybe it's $3. Do we have a $3 tier? I think we do.
5.
5 is lowest. Okay.
5.
Yeah. Some of these Patreons I started a long time ago, and they actually had lower tiers. And
yeah.
They were like
the money's all weird.
Yeah, the money gets weird. But anyway, go check that out. We'd love for your support.
And because Ben's a pal, I just want to shout out his podcast, the Holocron Histories.
Yeah.
Also on the Robots. So if you like Star Wars.
Yeah, and I'm excited about the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, Obi-Wan's coming out. I'm super excited about Obi-Wan. Me and a friend have been just spam texting like memes and stuff and everything back and forth to each other. Like, have you seen the Savage Owen memes? Like Savage Uncle Owen?
No. I need to look at these. You need to send these to me too. Yeah.
I will. Yeah. There's like a whole part where it's like it shows in the trailer where like Obi-Wan is like, Luke needs to train, and he's like, yeah, like you trained his dad, and it was like,
yeah, right, yeah.
People have been making memes about it, like with different Star Wars moments, and it's been absolutely incredible. It's so funny, but so go check out Ben's Holocron Histories on the Robots Radio Rocket Club. I think I was his first patron. I'm not sure.
I think you were.
But I'm pretty sure I was. So, Darth Toasty's over there listening. So you should be too.
The most dangerous of all the Sith. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Go check out his show. Get caught up on all the Obi-Wan lore. Be ready for everything coming out. And then also we have a review to read. This is a nice big one. This one came in from, I don't know how to pronounce the name, QKLOHA. QKLOHA. We probably messed that up. From the US, who wrote, "Grab your something oil." Awesome. Absolutely phenomenal show. I started my journey on the path a few years ago with The Witcher 3 and going backwards, and this show has filled in so many lore gaps for me. It has everything from breakdowns on every monster the world has to offer, important characters, world-changing events, and discussions on important topics like how each school makes a Witcher and how many haircuts you could have instead of going to a magic college for 12 years. 1,440. Tom, Robots, and you'll never spell my name right, Toasty, are incredible hosts, knowledgeable.
The best part is that he misspelled Toasty. They misspelled Toasty.
They spelled it the way I do, with a Y. Oh, Toasty, there's no T.
There's not even a T there.
That's right. That's awesome. That's so good. Please do not update your review to fix that. Just leave it as it is, because that's awesome.
It's great. We love it.
Because I think everyone should start calling you Tozy. So Tozy, our incredible host, knowledgeable, entertaining, and passionate about the Witcher universe. Keep up the good work and good luck on the path. That is awesome. Thank you so very much. And if you want to help us out and you don't have the means to join us on Patreon or whatever, leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or just a rating on Spotify is absolutely 100% helpful. Also, telling your friends. If you have friends who are into The Witcher and the topic comes up, just be like, hey, I listened to this podcast. It's really awesome. You should check it out. That helps a ton too. Word of mouth is one of the best things you can do to help us. But we appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. And Toasty, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about the Netflix series because, like we were discussing before, Stregobor has kind of a more fleshed out role.
He's definitely a more fleshed out character. Definitely, they definitely made us hate him more than we already did. So most of his stuff obviously was in the show, but there's a little bit of background information on him that they don't express 100% in words. So I'm just gonna do that first.
Okay.
So sometime during Falca's infamous rebellion, Stregobor got caught up in the conflict and witnessed firsthand the destruction it caused on the mages at Mirth. We talked about last week, Mirth was the original mage school before they made Aretuza and Banard. And during Falca's rebellion, she like sacked it and killed lots of mages, burned it to the ground. Stregobor, while he survived the rebellion, lost both his hands in a fire, which we see that one episode he presents it to his class.
And we discussed that on the episode. Like, was that actually real? Was it symbolic of what he used to look like, but he got his hands back because of magic? You know, like, I don't know. Toast, do you have a sense if we have any more information about that, or is that still kind of up in the air?
The information that I found states that he resorts to illusions to make it look like he still has hands and hides the injuries.
So he really doesn't have hands still.
Yeah. And so he must use like magic really to like interact with things.
He uses mage hand, as an actual hand, like a D&D spell, as an actual hands. And he's constantly doing it.
Yeah, and he's in this does make sense because he's actually known as a master illusionist. Mm-hmm. He's incredibly good when it comes to illusions. And we actually see that in the, like, when he's interrogating Yennefer, he kind of throws her into this like strange illusion where like they're in the hall, but it looks like she's like strapped to a chair and like in like some sort of like dungeon cell or something.
Right.
So
but that's all in her mind at that point. Yeah, she's not actually in a place like that.
It's an illusion. Yeah. So, sometime later, he became one of the heads of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, and by 1206 was the rector at Banard Academy, where he became a mentor to Istrid. Awesome. This turned out to be fruitful for Stregobor, as fruitful for Stregobor as Istrid. Geez, I'm not reading this right. As fruitful for Stregobor as Istrid, not realizing how much his mentor despised elves and mixed people. Dear God, dude, like... That sounds horrible in a real life sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, like
revealed to, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with you. Like, I don't know, you and I, and if you're the kind of person who thinks that like, you know, other types of people are bad, or the mixing of people from different cultural backgrounds is wrong, then you're listening to the wrong show. because anybody who has that belief has no leg to stand on. Like there's no reason to believe that at all. This
is like, for people that are familiar with Harry Potter, this is Umbridge.
Oh yeah.
Umbridge is, her whole thing is that she hates half breeds, which is like terrible.
Like you are mistaken. That is your beliefs are making the world worse. Please change your beliefs. Yeah.
So and as we know, if you watch the show, just how much he hates elves. So when Istrid revealed to Stregobor that Yennefer was a quarter elf, he used the information against her, informed the rest of the Brotherhood in order to deny Yennefer getting the position as Aedern's mage advisor when she was supposed to graduate. But because Yennefer's a bad bitch, she got it anyways.
Right.
So
good for
her.
You
know, all power to Yennefer. Screw you, Stregobor. So dude, awful, just awful. So and the rest of the things, like if you've watched the show, you'll be familiar. So it's really much of a kind of a brief run through. The first episode, which they do the telling of Renfrey versus Stregobor, which, you know, we went over, it's just, you know, the episode just kind of shows us the connection and Geralt's stance on it and how close he gets to Renfrey in that sense of like, because I don't, they definitely like in the books they sleep together, but it's not really like a
point of view kind of
genuine connection as it is in the show. Because I mean, he has flashbacks of like Renfrey and stuff to the rest of the show at this point, so it's like this is how much all of this really affected him.
She hit him on kind of a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. Then we the next kind of big thing we see Stregobor in, other than him like keeping Yennefer from or revealing that information about Yennefer, trying to like stop her from getting that position through like the next couple episodes after the first episode, and then later on the Conclave of the Northern Mages, where they all get together and they're talking about what they're going to do in order to help Sintra, whether they're going to go fight, what they're going to do to stop Nilfgaard. And pretty much it kind of gets to the point where it's like mostly like male versus female.
Yeah.
Or men, where
it comes down on very close to those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the sorcerers are on the other side of the table talking about how it's not their problem. They shouldn't get involved. Like Sintra like had their warning and they still messed it up, and that they shouldn't do anything about it, while Tisea is trying to argue that like they need to do as much as they can to stop Nilfgaard. And then they all come to a vote, and the vote goes in favor of doing nothing to help. But as we know, Tisea and a group of other mages kind of decide to take action anyways.
Toasty, do you know what would be really cool is to do a what if episode, maybe even with our patrons, of like if the female mages had not acted at that moment, how would things have been different? Like a what if episode. I mean, so much. Like they may have even got Ciri. Like there's a lot that could have changed and gone differently had those women not stood up against them and halted the army for as long as they did. That was a very, very critical point in the way the story plays out from that point on.
And I mean, even the consequences of that roll over into season 2 and the things that happen with those characters. I mean, like if Yennefer didn't fight and didn't do what she did, what would have happened as a result in season 2? Like, would she have ever even met Ciri in the first place? Like stuff like that. Like,
and plus, really I mean, there's a lot of character growth that happens with all of the characters due to that situation. Damage and terrible things happen as well, but things that they overcome in order to continue growing as people. So we can't go into it now. I mean, you and I could sit and speculate about this for the next hour, but
for sure. So, as for that's really the last we see of him in season 1, and then we get to the season 2, which I guess spoiler warning if you haven't watched it, but like
chances are you have.
Why haven't you at this point?
Yeah, but if you haven't, spoilers.
Yeah. Basically, Yennefer disappears after the Battle of Sodden, but she gets taken by Nilfgaard. But through the weird Baba Yaga stuff, they release her, and she gets back to Aretuza, where basically the quarter elf is back, and Stregobor's not a fan of that because weird stuff is happening. The elves are on the move. He's already like super tense about that because those are like, he's worrying about like the Scoia'tael and like full-blooded elves. And so, this elf person shows up and he's freaking out, and he's basically trying to do anything possible to get Yennefer condemned from the group. So he ends up putting her under this illusion, like we said before, and just pierces her mind to figure out like all the information that she had or that she's experienced from like her time away. Finds out that she was with Nilfgaard. They let her go and pretty much even though he gets caught in the act and doing that kind of thing is completely against the rules and like violating like the peace between them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, which sucks, is that he's charismatic, and he's charismatic enough to convince the rest of them that he's just doing what's best for the Northern Kingdoms, and that Yennefer, the elf, a quarter elf, is the one who's the threat, and that she was working with Nilfgaard, and that she's a spy, and they have to get her to prove that she's good.
He seems like the kind of person who probably believes his own BS. Yeah. I mean, I've worked for and been around narcissists before. He
does. I mean,
that's something that is true of narcissists, is that they will say in the moment whatever is most advantageous to them in order to manipulate other people. But then from that moment on, once they speak that into existence, they then believe that as well. They act as if that's the actual truth of reality. They're constantly creating reality around them. And he definitely has that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And it doesn't help. I mean, obviously the big reason is like the horrible mistreatment of elves in the Northern Kingdoms. I mean, like, at that point, like with the way that they were treated and humiliated, and like kept as like not even like second class, they're like third, fourth class citizens in comparison.
Right.
And
barely have any freedoms. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that would push any people into like rebelling or looking for like the deal with the enemy that gets them like on a better footing. Like you just don't want to be treated that way. But of course that doesn't help with, Stregobor's point of view, because, the elves become the Scoia'tael and they start attacking the Northern Kingdoms, and they're like, the elves are rebelling against us. And I was saying that they were bad this whole time, and look at them now.
I warned you.
They are bad.
Yeah. It's like he uses it as justification for everything else he's done.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then of course the same topic, there's a lot of, he's now, or he makes a big fuss about the new elven baby, because I guess in his mind, at least they couldn't procreate very successfely, but now they're managing to, and that's a problem because,
it gives them hope.
He wants them to die off.
It gives them hope for the future. It gives them, it makes them stronger. It's a power thing.
Season 2 is really just Stregobor in his anti-elf crusade, essentially, of painting them as the enemy and trying to convince people to do probably unspeakable things to them. So
yeah, I hope he gets it. I hope he crosses. I hope so. Okay. So if you're rooting for the good guys, you don't want the good guys to do vile, terrible things, because it's like the Batman conundrum, right? Like once he starts acting like the villains, doesn't he just become the villain? But you kind of hope that he pisses off some other terrible person who then does terrible things to him, so it doesn't ruin one of the good guys. I'm under no false beliefs that Yennefer is like some like sweetheart. Like Yennefer is, like I said before, she's a bad bitch. Yeah. And she is like, and she doesn't have qualms about like doing bad things to people. And like most people in this universe don't. I mean, yeah, it's true.
The biggest person who's got qualms about doing bad things to people is Geralt.
Right. It's true.
Everyone else doesn't really, like, it's not a big problem for them. I mean, when I think there's like a part with the books where she saves Jaskier from Ryance, like he's getting tortured by Ryance. And she like, I think he escapes, but she kind of tortures the hell out of like one of his companions to get answers. And it's like, Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't have those boundaries the way that like Geralt does. Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I think that it's like Yennefer delivering Stregobors just desserts. That's like the thing I want to see.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, maybe we'll get that in season 3. Who knows? I mean, who knows how far afield they're going to go with the way the story
maybe
went.
Ciri will, and she would like she doesn't even know him, but it's like,
well,
like
it's, I feel like it needs to be somebody who
he would hate her too,
is like, vindicated, right? Like he has done Yennefer wrong. I mean, that is
either that or like, maybe
to tap into somebody's mind like that is absolutely like, you should have permission to do that. Like, how violated do you feel when if somebody like reaches into your mind and starts messing around? Like, absolutely, she has the right to feel like
it's
violated by him. Yeah,
they talk about like they didn't want to let Tissaia do it to like the enemy.
Right.
Like, they look so far down. Imagine someone doing it to an ally and then still managing to talk his way out of it.
Right.
Like,
absolutely. So like if anybody has the justification and it would feel good coming from, it would be Yennefer.
Or maybe Tissaia.
You know, what would be even more interesting is if it's like a character moment where she does grow as a character and she is about to do something terrible and then decides not to and pulls back. But then that terrible thing happens to it anyway. It's like the universe has decided like, no, you're not getting off. She forgave you, but you are like, the universe has not forgiven you, like that kind of thing.
That would be great too.
Yeah.
That would be great too.
So then you get both. You get like the character you like growing and becoming a better person, along with like still the bad guy getting what's coming.
Yeah. So, and I think, I mean, I imagine we're probably going to get a lot more Stregobor. I'm sure he's definitely on the side of like if once because we know Istrid goes blabbing his mouth to Stregobor about plenty of other things.
Yeah,
so
hopefully
chances are he goes somehow lets it slip about Ciri and her elder blood or whatever, finding that out, and then Stregobor is going to go on a crusade against her too. Because I mean, it's just,
I feel like at the end of the season, there's kind of that moment where everybody's just sharing all the information and everything like comes out anyway. So,
but we don't like specifically see him, so it's like, but yeah, I'm sure he's in enough to figure, like, to get this information too. Yeah. So
all right. Well, there you go. That's the Stregobor update or episode. I guess there's not really an update, but maybe we will have an update once we get to season 3. Also, there was some rumor about the other Witcher series potentially coming out by the end of the year. Did you see that?
Yeah. I posted it in our Discord or retweeted it.
Yeah,
it seems like the Witcher Blood Origin might be looking at a Christmas release date. So,
which could be cool, because what if they're staggering them like every other year? Because I know it takes them a while to finish production on these shows. And
no, because it's not even every. Well, I mean, I guess
it would be December last year, December this year, right? Like, so you have one Witcher series and then the other Witcher series.
Yeah, the actual Witcher season 3,
right?
But just like, but it's like, I mean, it's still like impressive though.
Yeah,
to get them out, like, be able to get, if we get a Witcher thing every year.
It would be really cool if we got every 6 months. Like if we have one show and then the next show and then the back to the show.
I mean, I'm cool with once a year. Like that's still pretty good. Often, like, for things like, I mean, and to think of like the things that they do for them and whatnot.
And Joker in chat says season 2 was delayed because of COVID. That's true.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get more than once a year. That would be good with me too. Either way, more Witcher stuff, please. Thank you.
The real thing is how much, like, how successful do you think it will be? Like, because I mean, The Witcher season 2 managed to like be like one of the top shows for the year, and it only had like a couple of weeks, not even. Like, I can't even remember. It was pretty crazy.
Well, there's a large contingent of people on the internet who complain about it breaking away from the books, and so there's always that. But with Blood Origins, there's less of that potential to happen at all.
Yeah,
because it's about stuff that happened in the past that's only kind of hinted at in the lore, and so they can do whatever they want with it, and now they're not going to, unless they completely change the universe in some very crucial way, they're not going to get as much heat from that. So it seems like there's some potential there.
I'm excited. I'm ready to see, like, I mean, I'm excited about the I can't remember her name off the top of my head anymore, but the Asian lady who's like,
actress.
The actress.
Yeah, I don't remember her name either.
I mean, she's been in like a ton of like kung fu things and whatnot, so I'm excited to see. I imagine that there's going to be some pretty cool fighting choreography. I mean, they managed to do really good with that already. So that should be good. Well, Toasty, we got to wrap this up. You got anything you want to share before we head out? Follow us at the Witcher Lorecast on Twitter. Still keeping an eye out for the release of season 2 of Cyberpunk. They haven't dropped it yet. I think soon. I'm not entirely sure. Almighty Crit doesn't communicate with me effectively enough, and I want to smack him.
He's a busy guy. Yeah. But just so anyone who hasn't heard, you're one of the characters in that season. Yes, I'm playing Mono, the I think I'm a tech now. This was originally a nomad, but we had too many nomads, and I was like, well, I guess I'll play a tech. All right. Who's basically still a nomad anyway. I'll be Tech the nomad. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. I mean, you can make a nomadic tech background rather than being like, your class. And then, when is this? I guess I have a recording with Genesis and Bravado on the Judy episode for Two Girls, One Ship this Friday. Yeah, actually. Yeah. And I guess Ben's got his patron episode. There you go. He's mentioned it in chat somewhere. Yeah, he said it's coming up on the 27th. 27th? Oh, man. So I guess I'll be over there too. There you go. So if you want more Toasty, all over the place. Lots of places to go for more Toasty. So go check out all those shows. The Lord of the Rings Lorecast is doing awesome. That's up to episode 12 now, and been getting some stellar reviews. People seem to really be loving it. So thank you so much for if you're listening to that as well. Also, I've got a bunch of other Lorecasts: Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect. Go check those out as well. And if you want other shows, we've got plenty of them. Robotsradio.net. Lots of other shows. Lots of wonderful creators beyond just me and Toasty. And if you want to join us, you can join the Rocket Club over at robotsradio.net. We will help you launch your show, or we'll help you improve your show and build a bigger audience. I've got a lot of tips. We talk every week. We get together and I help out the other creators with growing and creating their podcasts and making them better every week. So go check that out. And that's what we got for this week. Toasty, what do you think we'll be doing next week? We got one episode before the patron episode. Do you have an idea of where we're going? It's still up in the air. It's still up in the air. I was definitely thrown off. This is a 5 Monday month. Oh, so, yeah. Sometimes we get 5. I'm so used to 4 episodes or 3 episodes of the patron, and then I was like, oh, we have another thing. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do another bestiary episode. People seem to like those. Yeah. Maybe just get an extra bestiary episode this month. Yeah, or maybe like a little lesser known creatures, kind of like the one that popped up in this one. Maybe it'll be about an amphisbaena, and it'll be like 5 minutes long. This is a 5-minute episode. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Or just kind of lesser known, smaller creatures that get mentioned in like the real world lore. Maybe I'll talk about Kiki Morris. There you go. That's cool too. Because that's what initiated the Blavik, like Renfrey and Stregobor. He was trying to sell a Kiki Morris corpse. There you go. Talking about Kiki Morris. All right, sounds good, man. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, chat. We love seeing you guys during the live shows. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there and stay safe on the path. There you go. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.